Hi friends, this is Zain. Welcome to our new YouTube channel MedStuff. I hope MedStuff would be a platform for all the people who wanted to know about the recently and most commonly spreaded diseases. In this video, I will tell you about COVID-19. After watching this video, you will have a clear idea about what is COVID-19, in what way it is different from common cold, what are the signs and symptoms, and to whom does this disease occurs? Will a pregnant woman transmit disease to her baby in the womb? Will breast milk spread the disease? From where do we get the infection? Does dead bodies transmit the infection? What are the myths we find in this transmission? Why do we get symptoms? And what is the mechanism behind these symptoms? How can we diagnose the disease? What are the loopholes in the diagnosis? How can we treat the disease? After watching this video, you will also going to know about why hydroxychloroquine is used, why azithromycin is used, why dexamethasone is used. In whom can we see this infection? Males are most commonly affected than females. Infection in children is rare. People suffering with asthma, diabetes, low immune system, hypertension will have more chance of getting infected. Why? What's the reason? Because the CD147 receptors number increases. So what? What will happen if it increases? Any virus to enter into the cell, it must bind to a receptor. After binding to the receptor, it will enter into the cell. CD147 is one of the receptor to which the COVID virus binds. As the receptor's number increases, the entry of the virus into the cell also increases. So more number of cells will be damaged. So if more cells are damaged, severity of the symptoms also increases. It's the reason behind why these people will be mostly affected. Where do we get the infection? Where is the primary site? The lungs are the primary site of infection, followed by throat. Primary mode of transmission of the disease will be from the droplets of the infected person. These droplets enter into the air while coughing, sneezing, talking. Viability of the virus in the air will be 3 to 4 hours. Virus is made up of spike proteins. These proteins will be degenerated outside the body. So the viability of the virus in air is 3 to 4 hours. Secondary mode of transmission is through fomites. What are the fomites? These are the virus contaminated objects. Disinfecting the or sanitizing the fomites or virus contaminated objects will stop the spread of disease. We get a doubt, will dead bodies transmit the disease? According to many researchers, dead bodies do not transmit the disease because there will be no ATP production in the dead body, so there will be no virus alive. But blood and the phlegm oozing out of the dead body will be containing the virus and they act as the source of infection. What about the pregnant woman? Will there be transmission of disease from mother to the fetus in the womb? Many researchers tell that transmission from mother to the baby in the womb is rare. But the cases are found where the virus is transmitted from mother to baby in the womb, but the probability is less. Fecal matter. The quantity of virus in fecal matter is negligible, so spread of virus through fecal matter is also negligible. If at all, if a person go and touches the sweat of the infected person or COVID infected patient, there will be no transmission of the disease. Mother to her baby. In breast milk, no virus is detected. So we can tell that breast milk will not spread the disease, but during the breastfeeding, there is a chance of spreading of infection from mother to the small baby from the droplets of the mother. Will mosquito bite transmit the disease? No. Mosquito bite will not transmit the COVID disease. What are the signs and symptoms and how it is different from common cold? If 100 people are tested positive for COVID-19, all the 100 people will come out with different signs and symptoms. But here I will tell you about the most commonly seen symptoms. Fever, breathlessness, dry cough, and throat pain are seen in 80% of cases. Fever greater than 101.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Then we can suspect it as a COVID fever. Then after in 20% of cases we will be having diarrhea, vomiting, muscle pain, fatigue. Recently mostly complained quality or symptom is loss of smell and loss of taste. Among all the tested positive cases, 80% of cases are mild. They don't need to go to hospital. They can treat themselves in the home. Their common symptoms are headache, fever, cough. They don't need any oxygen supplementation. Moderate people or moderately affected people are 15%. They need oxygen supplementation. Severely affected people are 5%. They have respiratory damage and multi-organ failure. Asymptomatic people are those. Among tested positive cases, 40% people are asymptomatic. They don't show any symptoms. They will be not having any symptoms. But they transmit the disease from person to person. What are the difference? How can you differentiate between common cold and COVID? In common cold, we can see sneezing and running nose. These are entirely absent or rarely seen in COVID patients. COVID patients suffer from fever, fatigue, diarrhea, vomiting, muscle ache, breathlessness. All these symptoms are absent in cold patient or patient suffering from cold. The symptoms will be increasing or the worsening of situation will be seen in COVID patient. For example, fever will be increasing day by day or the symptoms will be increasing day by day in COVID patients and the symptoms will be decreasing in cold patients. Patients suffering from common cold will be having nasal congestion. This is rarely seen in COVID patient. Incubation period of COVID patient is 12 to 15 days, while the cold patient is 1 to 3 days. Anosmia, ageusia, loss of smell sensation, ageusia, loss of taste sensation are seen in COVID patient, but anosmia is rarely seen in patients suffering from cold. How do we get the symptoms and the mechanism behind it? I have told you that fever, breathlessness, cough are the main symptoms we see in COVID-19 and multi-organ damage is the main cause for the death of the patient. Okay, how do we get the fever? When the virus enters into the body, immune system gets activated and this immune system on activation leads to the release of interleukins and these interleukins reach the central nervous system and central nervous system they reach the hypothalamus and in the hypothalamus it is a thermostat controls the temperature of the body. It will activate or it will irritate the thermostat or hypothalamus and causes the release of prostaglandins. These prostaglandins causes fever and it's the reason why we get the fever. It is the alveoli, blood vessel. Exchange of gases takes place between them. Oxygen from here goes to blood vessel and carbon dioxide from blood vessel goes into the alveoli. Okay, it is a normal process. If at all, if it is infected by virus infection causes stimulation of immune system and releases interleukins, neutrophils, and macrophages. Release interleukins will causes the inflammation of the alveoli and causes pneumonia. And if the inflammation is spread to the blood vessels. Inflamed blood vessels will increase the capillary permeability and increase the plasma into the fluid interstitial space. This interstitial space, from there the fluid enters into the alveoli. Plasma is nothing but the liquid part of the blood. Okay, and again these neutrophils and macrophages will release the enzymes. The released enzymes will damage the virus. It also damages the alveolar cells. These damaged alveolar cells will accumulate in the center, and the fluid is accumulated here, and the cells also accumulated here. These both things will consolidate the alveoli. Consolidation of the alveoli is nothing but the hardening the surface of the alveoli. Due to the hardening of surface of the alveoli, exchange of gases will be hard, because there is the consolidation here. Hardening of surface had occurred here, so less exchange of gases takes place. Due to the less exchange of gases, less amount of oxygen enters into the blood, so less amount of oxygen will be transferred to the organs. It leads to hypoxia. Why do we get the cough? As all the dirt is accumulated in the center of the alveoli will try to expel it. So it will produce cough. It will try to expel it. In the process of expelling, we get cough. What is dyspnea? A normal person will take up to 18 to 20 breathings per minute. But a person infected with virus need to perform more work, so he need to take 30 times per minute. He need to breathe 30 times per minute, because as the alveoli is damaged and he need to meet the oxygen demand of the body. So the person need to do more work in less time. So he need to work excess for breathing. So workload for the breathing increases. In pneumonia, there will be inflammation of alveoli. Alveoli inflammation, it spreads to the blood vessels. Why do we have multiple organ damage? Pneumonia will causes the inflammation of the blood vessels. This inflammation of the blood vessels will causes the leakage of plasma. As the plasma is the liquid part of the blood decreases, so blood volume decreases. Inflammation of the blood vessel will cause vasodilation. Vasodilation will cause decrease in peripheral resistance. Peripheral resistance is nothing but the resistance provided by the artery to the blood supply, to the blood flowing in it. These both factors will decrease the blood pressure. As the blood pressure decreases, the blood reaching the organs also decreases. So the organs will not function properly. The kidney will not function properly. The liver will not function properly. All the organs in the body will not be performing well up to the mark, because there will be less supply of blood to it. As blood supply to the kidney decreases, liver decreases, lung decreases, kidney will be producing more creatinine, and the increase of nitrogen. The liver will not be functioning properly, the lung will not be functioning properly, all these organs will not function properly, leading to multi-system damage. The notes is given in description, you can go through it. How to diagnose COVID-19? First and foremost test is reverse transcriptase polymerase chain reaction. It is a gold standard test, gives us accurate results, can detect very small quantity of viral RNA because of polymerization. The sensitivity is 30 to 80%. Sensitivity is nothing but the ability of the test to detect the positivity, whether the person is positive or not. Most accurate results are given, but it is time taking. Rapid serological test detect antigens and antibodies. We can get the results in minutes, but there are many loopholes because many false positive results are seen. CT scanning is also an important diagnostic in COVID-19. What do we find in CT scan? We can see three findings: ground glass opacity, consolidation, crazy paving pattern. Ground glass opacity, in normal lung, alveoli is filled with the air and will be seen in black color. In COVID infected patient, this alveoli is filled with fluid and is seen in gray and white color. This this appearance is similar to a glass window in winter, so it is called as ground glass opacity. Consolidation is nothing but it is the serious condition of the ground glass opacity. More the fluid accumulates, and so it will result in the consolidation of the lung. Crazy paving pattern is nothing but the irregular thickenings of the interstitial space. It is the alveolus and it is the wall. This is the interstitial space. It will be the irregular thickenings of the interstitial space. These three findings we can see in the CT scan of a COVID infected patient. After doing the liver function test, the aspartate aminotransferase and the bilirubin level increases. This, if at all, if this count increases, it indicates multi-organ damage. Before going into the treatment, let's have a brief idea about pathogenesis. Virus is made up of spike proteins. These spike proteins need to bind to a receptor. And what are these receptors? These receptors are angiotensin II converting enzyme receptors and CD147 receptors. Angiotensin converting 2 receptors details are given in the notes, go through it. And CD147 receptors I had told you earlier. For binding, for attaching of viral proteins to the receptor, there should be some changes on the surface of the spike proteins and the surface of the receptors. The spike proteins undergo proteolysis and glycosylation is occurred on the surface of receptor. These changes will favor the binding of virus to the receptor. Once binding to receptor, the virus enters into the cell. After entering into the human cell, the virus will form a structure called as endosome. Endosome is nothing but a protective form. The pH inside the endosome is less than 7. This endosome will enter into the nucleus with the help of a protein called as importin. The viral RNA is catalyzed by the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase into mRNA so that it can form viral proteins. This RNA, with the help of RNA-dependent RNA polymerases, will form many RNA polymerases so that many reactions will be catalyzed by this enzyme. And after entering into the human cell, this virus will stop the cell division in the nucleus. Once it enters the nucleus, it will stop the cell division and it will stop the sending impulses or information to the immune system. So once the immune system gets activated, it will release interleukins. These released interleukins will destroy the virus. So the virus want to protect itself, so it will stop cell division and sending responses to the immune system as soon as it enters into the nucleus. After this, the mRNA will form viral proteins and structures. Viral structure proteins assemble and form viral structures, and these again form daughter viruses. To understand the treatment, we need to have a brief idea about the cytokine storm. Body's response to viral infection gets started if the viral population increases. Once the immune system responds, it will release cytokines. These cytokines will be released in more quantity in COVID patients. These released cytokines leads to cytokine storm. In this cytokine storm, there will be release of more interleukins on interferons. These released interleukins and interferons causes severe acute respiratory syndrome and multi-organ damage. The drug will act on different sites so that it could prevent the entry of virus. First, prevention into human entry. This drug will stop binding of the viral protein to the receptor, so it will not allow proteolysis and glycosylation. Prevention of acidic pH. This drug will change the pH in the endosome so that the acidic pH will become alkaline pH. Inhibition of RNA polymerase. If the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase is inhibited, all these three reactions will be stopped. Fourth one, prevention of entry into nucleus. If the entry into the nucleus is stopped, then the virus will not enter into the nucleus and further processes will be blocked. Drugs to suppress immune response. These drugs act on act on decreasing the immune response so that it could prevent severe acute respiratory syndrome and multi-organ damage. Now, in detail, I will explain you about each and every drug. Entry prevention: chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine will prevent the entry of the virus into the cell. Actually, for the attachment of viral protein to the receptor, there should be changes occurring on the surface of the viral protein and the receptor. This chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine will not occur these changes, will not happen these changes because proteolysis and glycolization is stopped. As these changes does not occur, the virus will not bind to the receptor and it will not. Meplazumab is also a drug which also prevents the binding of virus into CD147 receptor. I have told you about CD147 receptors earlier. Chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine have many side effects, but prolongation of QT interval is a main side effect. So it should not be given in combined with any drug that causes the prolongation of QT interval. Acidic pH prevention. We know that virus enters into the cell and forms an endosome. pH inside the endosome is 7, less than 7, so it is an acidic pH. Here, hydroxychloroquine will make this acidic pH into alkaline so that the endosome is destroyed, as the destruction of endosome causes the virus destruction. Another drug target is to inhibit the enzyme RNA dependent RNA polymerase. If this enzyme is inhibited, further processing of viral RNA is reduced. If no further processing of viral RNA, no formation of mRNA. No mRNA, no viral proteins. If no viral proteins, no viral structure is formed. Overall, the growth of virus is stopped by inhibiting this enzyme. So, remdesivir, favipiravir, and ribavirin are these drugs which are helpful in suspending the function of RNA dependent RNA polymerase. Remdesivir, it's an IV infusion and is widely used. Previously, it was used in the treatment of Ebola. Favipiravir and ribavirin are also widely used. Another widely used drug in the treatment of COVID-19 is ivermectin. This drug will inhibit the virus entry into the nucleus. Virus should enter into the nucleus with the help of a protein called as importin. If this protein is blocked, then the virus entry into the nucleus is stopped. In this way, the viral growth is stopped and the nucleus is saved from the virus and the virus population is reduced. Immunomodulators. All these immunomodulators will prevent from cytokine storm. Azithromycin, which is a macrolide antibiotic and has anti-inflammatory effect, is used to stop cytokine storm, followed with corticosteroids such as dexamethasone. This decreases the immune response so that the cytokine storm will be prevented. Interleukin 6 antagonists such as sarilumab will stop the release of interleukins and prevent further damage to the organs. Convalescent plasma. This convalescent plasma is taken from the COVID recovered patients. This plasma consists of antibodies. These antibodies will be helpful for the person suffering from COVID-19. So that these antibodies which had formed already in the recovered patient will helpful for the patient who is suffering in serious condition. All these drugs which I have told you now are not approved but are used for symptomatic treatment. Among all the drugs, hydroxychloroquine, chloroquine, remdesivir, favipiravir, azithromycin, dexamethasone are commonly used in the treatment of COVID-19. Azithromycin and hydroxychloroquine should not be given together because there will be increase in QT prolongation, QT wave in the ECG, which causes electrolyte imbalance.